Hey guys, welcome back to the Midnight Movie. Got a doozy for you this week. I've decided to take a little break from reviewing the films of John Carpenter just because we are in the Halloween season. We are in October, and obviously Carpenter is synonymous with scary movies, but I kind of wanted to break things up a little. I've watched kind of what I think is a really fun, eclectic mix of movies that all are of the horror genre that definitely fit in October in Halloween. But I did want to break up I don't know, maybe the monotony of the John Carpenter films. I know that people have their favorites, and the last couple that I've done really do not seem to have struck a nerve with any of you. So I'm thinking maybe we need to break it up a bit. And I can think of no better film to clean the palate with than 2024's The Substance. Man, this movie, uh, what can I say about The Substance? The Substance, which is, it's directed by Coralie Fargeat. I think I'm saying that correctly. I saw a movie of hers about 5 years ago called Revenge on Shudder.com, all in French. Fargeat is French. This woman really knows what she's doing. Man, you can't predict what she's going to do, but she always impresses, in my opinion. And The Substance is, on top of being a body horror film, which I think that's sort of selling it short, although it's definitely a body horror film, is probably one of the most, I would say, salient films of our time because it deals so much with self-acceptance, with image, with body image, with popularity, with having to look a certain way, the pressure that we put on people, we put on ourselves, depending on, if you're in the entertainment industry in any way, or even if you're not, just the greater and greater demands of trying to look better and feel better. The Substance follows a character named Elizabeth Sparkle, played impeccably, beautifully by the great Demi Moore, who, up until this movie, I can't recall the last time I saw her in anything. I'm sure maybe I've missed some things, but I feel like the last time I really saw her was maybe G.I. Jane or Charlie's Angels Full Throttle. I feel like she's been away and maybe just kind of just producing behind the scenes. But man, did Demi Moore come roaring back as Elizabeth Sparkle, an aging actress in Hollywood. Uh, Basically, she is a fading celebrity, fading actress, and after being fired by her producer, played by Dennis Quaid, in just the most slimeball character I've ever seen Quaid play, uh, and it's all due to her age that she's let go. She decides to turn to a black market drug to, I guess, regenerate herself. And this is kind of where the story, the drama, the crisis begins. And she kind of becomes a younger version of herself, played by Margaret Qualley. And of course, unexpected side effects ensue. This movie is really, and I think this has to be understood, really universal. Whether you are a fading celebrity, an aging actor, or you're just someone who maybe is literally not comfortable in your own body, or have had any type of body image, or just not feeling like you measure up, like you feel like you're being passed by, or you're not one of the cool kids anymore. That is the sort of the universality plug-in, I think, for The Substance. And we follow Demi Moore's character, Elizabeth Sparkle, as she kind of splits in two. She has kind of her daytime persona as Elizabeth, and then she splits off into, I'm trying to remember the name of the name of her younger version. I'm sorry about Sue. Sue, played by Quayle, and it's really interesting how they work this. Your double is kind of your idealized self, younger, beautiful, supple, and so forth. And uh, the rule is that it's every 7 days that you take the substance and you hook in sort of like you're feeding IV packets because your body, you as you are now, will lie in your bed, in your closet, wherever it is, while your double emerges from your current body and goes off and lives the life that you want to live as the younger, more vital, more energetic, more beautiful self. But you have to return to yourself, your other body, every 7 days. And if you don't, it's your original body that pays a price. And again, this movie is just so brilliant in its exploration of how we battle ourselves. And you see Elizabeth is sort of almost fighting with Sue, even though they don't ever exist in the same space because they're the same person. There is this concept of she's not listening to me. Why won't she do what she's supposed to do? She knows the rules, and the response from the company that dispenses this wild drug is, there is no her, there's only you. And for me, that's the brilliance of this movie. It is an incredibly shot 2+ hour film about really how we battle ourselves. And it's a beautiful portrait of this individual played by Demi Moore, and the vulnerability, and what does it really mean to get older. I don't really understand why we have such a hang up with age personally. As you age, you only become, if you're living right, more interesting. You should become wiser, more knowledgeable, and so on. And how that's a bad thing, I don't quite get. If you exercise, you stay away from drugs and alcohol, you eat right, you can hold on to a really beautiful body. But that's kind of the interesting story with Elizabeth Sparkle in this film, is she doesn't want to let it go. And I think for me, what I draw from this movie is, if you don't allow yourself to evolve, if you don't allow yourself to grow, you really injure yourself. And that's kind of the crux of the entire drama of The Substance. And quite a lot of body horror on top of it. I can't minimize the body horror. I myself am not a body horror guy. There's probably maybe a handful of David Cronenberg films that I return to that I really enjoy. But it's just, whew, this is where if you want to call me a wimp, you want to call me weak, that's fine. I don't do body horror well. But that said, this movie, The Substance, is so brilliant. It's so incredibly well written, well acted, well shot and directed, that it's a movie that I wouldn't think I would watch again, but I have, just because I'm so impressed by how well it's done. Um, Despite, if you're the type of person like me who kind of gets the willies from certain things, I actually held my own pretty well in this movie up until probably near the end. And there's a whole lot that goes on throughout this movie. Um, Incredible practical special effects. That's something that I think I really also appreciated about this movie, because I'm not anti special effects. I'm not anti digital. I'm not anti CGI at all. I think those are great tools. I do think we're maybe leaning on them a little too much, depending on the film. But this film really leans hard into the practical effects, because you can't really do convincing body horror, if that's your goal, without practical effects. And the team involved in this film, they really nailed it. The sort of horrible, gory, really graphic effects and parts of this film really hit, and you're just sort of so impressed by how they do it. But there's the other side of it too, the extremely beautiful, shots of Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, even it's just some of the framing, incredibly beautiful framing and composed shots by the director and the cinematographer. There's just this really interesting interplay back and forth, this yin and yang that goes on in The Substance, because of course the whole point of it is that this woman wants to reclaim her former vigor. And in so many ways, it makes her character even more tragic in a way because Demi Moore is a beautiful woman. Demi Moore is a vivacious, talented, woman who, shouldn't have to worry about her age. And of course, that's what this movie's talking about, that there are incredibly talented, capable people of age that are just sort of pushed away. And, I don't know how that's going to hit with maybe somebody, viewers in their 20s or 30s. Uh, maybe you just watched for the great drama, the incredible performances, the sci-fi aspect of it. Just be aware that aging is something that happens to everyone, and even if you're not an older person, maybe you can plug into feeling less. Maybe you aren't a fading or an aging celebrity, but maybe you had something in your life where you just were on the outs for whatever reason, maybe a completely stupid, arbitrary reason, as happens in life. So I think certainly if you are a woman, you're going to be able to relate to this because of the incredible pressures socially that are put on women to look and behave a certain way. But I think it does branch way beyond that. I think if you've ever been somebody who's been on the outskirts, on the outside, pushed out, or been made other in whatever way it is, I think you can identify with the humanity of what it means to be sort of pushed out and on the outs. And you just happen to get maybe one of the most incredible, harrowing cinematic experiences that I've ever seen. I got to the end of this movie and I, like that, I felt like I had run a race. It was a harrowing experience and I mean this in the best way, for my central nervous system. I would put The Substance in the same class of movie as the original Exorcist, directed by William Friedkin, and the great Ari Aster's 2018 horror film and his directorial debut, Hereditary. If you're familiar with either one of those movies, they are incredibly sort of fraught with intensity and emotion and atmosphere and mood and stakes. And yeah, The Substance is one of those movies that it's right up there with films like The Exorcist. It is that damn good. I don't want to go into too much more detail because it would kind of ruin it. I kind of lost I lost sense of time watching this movie. That's how good it was. And I know that I don't review a whole lot of newer stuff, and I got some criticism for that. I love old stuff, but this is one movie that absolutely deserved its Oscar nominations. Demi Moore definitely deserved her Oscar nomination. Did she win? I can't remember if she won for this. Let me just check real quick. Exception screenplay, casting, filming, westerns. Holy smokes! Sorry, guys. I really should have known this. Jesus. Okay. Accolades. Okay, I don't think she won, but she was certainly nominated. Yeah, film's nominated for Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Actress. Definitely deserved all of them. This is another one of those movies that it gives me hope for our industry, in that it's something that it doesn't, I feel like if this was 10, 15, certainly 20 years ago, this movie might not have gotten close to the accolades that it got. I don't know if it would have gotten somebody like Demi Moore to be part of the cast. It's been so interesting watching how horror and science fiction have sort of really become more respected genre within film in ways that again, a decade or more ago, I never would have expected Everything Everywhere All at Once to have swept the Oscars a couple of years ago like it did, for a film like The Substance that is just really out there, but again, so well done, and rightly worth and of all of its accolades. I don't know, there's been a sea change in how we view these morality tales, whether it be The Substance or it be something like Everything Everywhere All at Once. These films really fit Get Out, frankly, any of the films of Jordan Peele, all fit into that. Uh, this is all the result of Rod Serling, who created the Twilight Zone series back in the 60s. All of these themes that these films deal with would have been right at home in the scripts of Rod Serling and Buck Houghton, those incredible geniuses. If you haven't watched the original Twilight Zone, go and watch it. It's probably, in my opinion, maybe the best TV series ever written, ever made, ever produced. And I think we're finally coming full circle with these incredible off-kilter, maybe weird and strange stories, again, beautifully executed, really getting the love and the accolades that they deserve. So, as a nerd, like I am, a sci-fi nerd, a kid who grew up on sci-fi novels and manga and anime and all this sort of stuff, to really see it really mainstreaming now, and these genre almost being sort of bulletproof in terms of, you can get superhero and video game stuff funded, and you can get original horror funded. Um, those are kind of like the bulletproof genre that people are like, okay, yeah, we'll say yes to that. It's pretty cool. In so many ways, this is more of, nerds, coming of age and ruling the world now, and getting the respect for the work that they deserve. And Coralie Fargeat and this entire cast and crew, mwah, amazing. But again, this quasi review doesn't nearly do justice what this movie is. It is. I would recommend watching it maybe in the middle of the day on a weekend. This is not a before bed watch. It's just, whew. I watched this movie in the middle of the day on a Saturday and went for a long walk with my dogs. I had to process, and it took me weeks to process. And months after that first viewing, I was thinking about it, and going into the second viewing, you can see the little touches and little flourishes, and how she layers things in. Again, absolute masterpiece. As far right up there with The Exorcist, Hereditary, all the greats. So I believe right now The Substance is streaming on HBO Max. If you have it, check it out. I am hoping that there's got to be a DVD. If there's a Blu-ray, I would love to see the making of this film and the development of it. I think it took about 2 years to write. And again, it's just such an impressive movie. So if you know what's good for you, it's Halloween season. Head over to HBO Max and check out The Substance. And I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.